Have you ever loaded into a game and just felt completely hopeless because of the enemy comp? Have you been trying to take map control but get denied by Breach over Neon, or an enemy Viper is denying a lot of info on the map, forcing you to play a certain way or be wary of more timings? Or is Double Duelist tanking all your utility, escaping, and then suddenly the site you hit has 3 or 4 people holding it? So we've all encountered these issues before, but without making adjustments when you load into the game, you might lose a lot of unwarranted rounds. On every map, I like to split comps into 3 general categories in which each has their own strengths. So there's double duelist comps, double initiator comps, and double smoke/sentinel comps. The agents chosen in each comp may slightly change their win condition, but overall the approach remains similar. So when you load into a game, run a quick analysis of what they're strong and weak at. Here's a good guideline of what each of these comps are strong at, first of all. So for double smoke/senti comps, most commonly they're just Viper comps. The way they place walls and orbs on attack might force you to have 2 players to watch certain areas. That allows them to make easier calculated judgments about your team's positioning. They tend to have a very strong post plants after they plant, whether that's Viper utility disrupting your retake or delaying it. And on defense, they also have strong site holds and info denial with walls and mollies. For double initiator comps, they're very good at taking initiative and map control. They have lots of stuns, recons, flashes to set up their single duelists. And on defense, they can take early control or set up strong trap plays with the same utility. For double duelist comps, seen often in both ranked and pro play for flexibility, they give more freedom to take initiative and make plays, which makes them unpredictable. On attack, they'll bait your utility and test how far they can contact up and get kills. And on defense, they can push areas aggressively and flood sites quickly once they confirm that you're going to hit that site. That's why you often see 4 people suddenly stacked onto one site. Every comp has weaknesses you can exploit. If you're the IGL, these are the game plans you should be establishing with your team, and if you're not, it's still good to keep them in mind so you can make your own plays based off their comp. When you're defending against double smoke/senti, they tend to be the most stagnant and slow-paced comps. Although they have strong defaults and post-plant setups, on attack, getting onto site is usually the hardest part for them, unless they can manipulate your rotations or catch a weak site. Usually it's just a solo duelist entering first, supported by info initiator util and some senti mollies. Maybe sometimes Omen will TP in with the duelist. So it's important to save a portion of your utility to deny the rest of the team from pushing in. This way you can isolate fights on the duelist or the Omen TP. If you're Killjoy or your Vice, they have some mollies at the choke, or if you have any sort of stun utility, you can stun the rest of the team and isolate fights on the duelist that's coming in. It's also good to be proactive mid to late round to gather info so you can make calculated site stacks, make it harder for them to get on the site. It's also important to have trap setups or direct util counter to make it harder for the Viper to lurk or get value off her wall or orb, whether that be Omen smokes to block it off or make it harder for her to lurk, or fade util to just put pressure on the Viper and re-clear areas where she put wall up or orb up. Don't let them set up post plants easily. Look to play disruptive before they can hit by catching timing or re-clearing with util, or commit to site holds after calculated gambles. When attacking versus double smoke/senti, they usually have slower rotations, fewer flashes, and less tendency to make proactive defensive plays. So most rounds will look similar with only a few outliers. So use this to your advantage. You can just drag out the round as far as you can, bait mollies and initiate a utility, make sure no one has walked down behind a Viper wall, then manipulate rotations with late round fakes. They have limited info utility and rarely push out, so time and pressure work heavily in your favor. When defending against double initiator comps, they tend to be more straightforward, especially with the new utility changes with higher cooldowns. When they dump a lot of util now, most of the times they'll be taking that space and not faking. This way you also likely know their attack default and know which lanes to exploit for plays. So when you're defending against them, it's a good rule on most maps to try bait out their util by using refreshable util on areas where they'll most likely take at the start of the round, this is high EV, or occasionally making super obvious plays that you might have a trap somewhere or potentially an orb posted to force them to use util to re-clear. For example, on Lotus Defense, all of a sudden you're not using util to take A anymore. Also, another good point is because they tend to be more util focused than double duelists and double sentis, playing disruptive in areas where they're likely to contact instead of util is good to catch enemy off guard. When attacking against double initiator comps, it's usually the most readable comp. On defense, if they're taking map control most of the time, if your comp can't contest easily, your options must be to take other areas first and potentially revisit or re-clear the original area, or if they just overcommit too much utility on the original side of the map, you can just rush the other side. It's also important to note sudden utility discrepancies might potentially mean there's a trap somewhere else on the map. For example, if they've been stunning, reconning, and smoking A on Haven majority of rounds, but this round the breach util is nowhere to be seen, we can make calculated guesses to be wary of traps on the second most common places for attackers to take, and in Haven's case, it's garage. When you're defending against double duelist comps, they have less util than double initiator comps and no Viper util for them to contact behind on most maps. As their game plan most times is to bait util, it's high EV to just use refreshable util start round and hold off angles or favorable high-low setups. Once you punish them and understand their attack rhythm, they'll probably start using util to clear areas, and once they do, they will have actually less to go into sight with. Unless start round they've got some insane map control by contacting, they can't really afford to run too many fakes, and if they do, it's hard to sell with the limited amount of util they have. Once they advance into good positions, be prepared for them to just go in, as they usually have 3 people that can avoid utility at the choke, which most cases, smokes, mollies, trips, walls, the Omen and double duelist can just go in and not eat any of their util. So the solution is pretty simple, and I don't even see many Pro VCT teams do it because a lot of players have been long-term conditioned to place util at the choke, and sometimes they fail to make adjustments mid-game. You can begin to adjust util onto the site, forcing them to have limited area on the site itself when planting. This way, their post plants are weaker and they have less site control. And to begin with, their post plants are a lot weaker than double Ini and double Senti, as there's less stuns and less like mollies set up on chokes. So if we can compress their range of post-plant map control, we don't need to waste util on areas where we might think they have, and save it all on where we know they are now. As double duelists have limited util and only so many pathing spots, there will nearly always be a blind spot in where you can sit in and get a kill, as opposed to double initiator, which they might have immense site coverage with their util. If you're Yoru or Vise or any like site anchor, sitting in these blind spots, get a kill and TP out, or get a kill, pop flash, get one more, or simply just get a kill and teammates can come flood in or trade easier as well. When attacking versus double duelists, you'll be wary of Yoru TP timings, 1 minute 10 and 40 seconds. Do slow defaults, break Senti util, hold for potential duelist aggro, and look to just do calculated rushes most times after the TP timing slots. If you have a good idea on their setup, the only thing you really have to worry about if you haven't already baited it out during your default is a single Senti util and Omen Paranoia. But attack should be relatively straightforward. Just think about the Yoru TP time frames, 1 minute 10, 40 seconds, and if you're in advanced positions, you could in most cases just go straight in, as they have less util to hold you compared to the other comps. For starters, I think this is a good general guideline. It's applicable to both ranked and pro play, but for pro player you also have to keep in mind enemy tendencies based off what the comp is actually doing. For example, if a double duelist comp is only hitting sites, planning, you don't really need to keep your util on site or towards backside anymore. You can keep your util at the choke and try to get a kill or 2 before falling back if they don't have the tendency of taking backside or CT. So think about what their comp is good and bad at. Once you understand that, you'll start to position better. If you can hold like an off angle, you can know where to stand without getting off by util, hold off angles depending on their comp. This way naturally you'll get more impact, get more kills on your roll. There will always be agent-specific differences too. For example, double duelist comp Yoruele might play differently to another set of 2 duelists. Next episode, I'll break down how to apply this on Haven, where every comp plays completely differently.